Hello, my name is Brett Carter, and I am a senior athletic training student. And I had my research on athletic trainers in secondary school systems. And my clinical question was, why more secondary school systems surrounding Emory-Henry College do not have an athletic trainer on staff? I grew up in that area, and when I was in high school, we had an athlete who tore his ACL the beginning of his junior year. Well, didn't know it at the time, just injured himself at the beginning of the junior year. And he continued to play on his torn ACL for finishing out his junior and senior year. So once he finally did graduate, he went and saw a physician, and they informed him that he had, in fact, torn his ACL and would have to have surgery. So after surgery, the physician told him that there was so much scar tissue in his knee that he would always have to walk with a limp. And I feel that if we did have an athletic trainer at our school system, the athletic trainer would have noticed that there was something going on with the athlete, that he wasn't to his full potential, and would have checked for this and been able to recognize the injury. He could have had it fixed and not had this limp for the rest of his life. So some previous research that I've done showed that about 42% of the schools in the United States have an athletic trainer, not on staff, just as someone, just as an employee. They're not always there, but and there's about 7 million student athletes with approximately 1.4 million injuries every year. And that's an approximation because in schools that do not have athletic trainers, their injuries are not always reported. So I feel that in these settings, they don't really have the appropriate medical coverage. So it falls upon like a coach or an athletic director or some bystander that sees the injury and has to help. Some of my methods was I sent my survey out to different school authoritative figures like a superintendent, principal, athletic director, and in like the following the surrounding counties around Emory-Henry. So my survey was about 15 to 20 minutes. It had mostly open-ended questions, so they could like explain their reasoning. And I used Google Forms to create my survey. Some of my results, I had about 50 or so surveys I sent out and only received 8 responses. So that was a very big limitation in my study. I didn't have enough data, but I still found a lot of interesting things. So it was split on the 8 responses I did receive. 4 had an athletic trainer and 4 did not. The ones that said they had an athletic trainer, it was mostly like a part-time on voluntary basis or one that covered like the entire county. So it wasn't really excellent coverage, I guess. I got 2 responses from Russell, 2 responses from Washington County, 2 responses from Tazewell County, and just 1 response from Scott County and 1 response from Wythe County. So some of the factors that prevented them from hiring an athletic trainer was mostly budgetary, which was sort of perceived. And then one that I really didn't think of was that it's not required for the school systems to have someone, which is interesting. And then I had one response talking about availability to them.
Okay, stop. What does that mean?
What?
Availability.
They just, that's, from what I could gather, is they couldn't find anybody around their area to help them. They just said availability when they replied, so I don't really know how hard they tried to find an athletic trainer or what.
So do you know if there was a job, was there a contract out, a job posting, or was it just, hey, will you come help us? Because that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
There's no.
I know that was my thing too. I don't know why they would just say availability, because I mean, they could find somebody. I have a feeling, that's my feeling. That
Or
they
were they offering something that wasn't realistic, and that's what they meant by availability?
Yeah,
They
I
would
feel
do
like
it for
that
what
could
they're
be
willing to
important.
pay.
Or that they was just wanting somebody to come in for free and do it.
Yeah, every county.
Yeah. And here was one of the questions that I asked that was, and it's, who does the Virginia Department of Education consider an appropriate licensed healthcare provider in the management of a concussion? Would anybody like to take a guess at the ones that are?
I know the answer, but I can't answer. Yeah.
Like that.
Okay, well, everybody said physician, so yeah, that is correct. A physician assistant, an osteopath physician, and an athletic trainer. And then you also have a neuropsychologist and a nurse practitioner can also be a provider in management of concussion. And I feel like a lot of people don't really realize this in the area. So my discussion and conclusion, I feel like the budget was the greatest concern, but nothing will really happen to this until it is required of them to have an athletic trainer on their staff. So, I mean, further research really needs to be conducted as to why it is not required of them to have an athletic trainer on their staff to cover their student athletes. I mean, we have coverage for most professional athletes and collegiate athletes, and we really don't have that much for our younger student athlete population. And I mean, there is a lot more of them compared to the professional and collegiate athletes. Questions?
Where was the superintendent from that responded?
I don't think I can tell you that.
Can't tell me the county?
You can say the counties.
I can say the county?
Yeah, that's all I'm asking. I'm not
Yeah.
saying who was it.
Okay, Tacit.
Isn't Bailey son?
I think she left.
He's still here.
She was the only, they was the only one that replied, superintendent wise.
What are your recommendations for how to improve the situation based on your research?
To how to improve it, I mean, it really, I guess for knowledge, I mean, I feel like if the parents and the parents would go to like the school board and tell them they want an athletic trainer, then that way it would happen. It could happen that way because the school board gets voted in by their viewership. Or it become a law that they have to have one.
Did you say percentages in regards to which ones thought that budget was an issue and the availability was an issue? What were your numbers on that again?
The
Third one?
availability was just one person.
Of
but-
8, right?
Everybody else pretty much said budget was a big issue, or it's not required. I had a few of them as to why they didn't have someone. Yeah. So I feel like the budget is just an excuse for them.
Well, if you're looking from their perspective,
Yeah.
though, if they
But I understand too.
they've got all these
because, I mean,
required personnel that they have to pay for, why are they
Yeah.
going to spend the salary
Extra
on an
money on
unrequired
They're
person?
repping teachers
Yeah.
who are teaching the kids.
why are they gonna take the money to put in an athletic trainer that maybe can teach 1 or 2 classes?
Yeah, because I mean, my mother, she's a teacher at Russell County, and I mean, it's hard, they've been wanting to get a raise forever, and they barely, got a raise. I can't remember last year, year before, and there's just not the money, I guess per se, but
It could be.
there could be. Yes, exactly. Because that was a big thing that happened with not using all their money last year, I think. So.
So, you know, what'd be really cool is if an athletic training student that actually did this survey would actually go back to the people and say, this is how you fix your budget problems. Because there's
Yeah.
things out there that address that.
Yeah. I
Whether
think they
it's-
actually do.
Hospital arrangement. I mean, there's ways to do it.
The hospitals that do it though.
Well, and the problem is if you've got certain areas where you've always had people volunteer to do it, whether it's a parent
They just
or a
want-
hospital or somebody.
Yeah, a
And
lot
it's
of
not
people
gonna
said
happen.
they have I got, from some of the research I found was that we have an EMT that comes for games, or we have a physician that comes just for games. But that's just, not everything happens in a game.
I think a lot don't like to do the grant funding because then that opens up the Pandora's box of, now how can we afford it once this grant disappears?
Any other questions?